Greetings, friends, and welcome again to Reflections. This is the Religious Affairs Show sponsored by Paducah Cooperative Ministries, whose theme is We Do God's Work with Human Hands. I am your host for this week. My name is Amariah McIntosoh, and I serve as the pastor of the St. James CME Church here in the city of Paducah. We send our prayers and blessings to our co-host, Gregory Waldrop, who once again is out making the world a better place in the name of the Lord. Today we have as our guest a local pastor who has also moved outside of the walls of the church and has branched out into a much needed area of ministry. Please welcome Pastor Anthony Walton, who serves as the chief shepherd of the Christ Temple Apostolic Church here in the city of Paducah. Welcome, Pastor Walton, to Reflections. We're glad to have you with us today. Tell us a little bit about Pastor Walton. You're not a Paducah native.
No, actually, I had been traveling from Nashville for about 8 years, and we just moved here this past August.
All right.
And we became residents of Paducah, and we are glad to be here. Things are moving really good for us.
So you've been kind of like 9 years?
Well, actually, 98 was the first time I came up. The last of April. So this past April was 8 years.
Okay, so you're 8 years as the pastor of Christ Temple.
Right.
And commuted.
Yes, ma'am.
For
most of that time.
Oh. How was that? How did the congregation handle a commuting pastor, especially one that had to come from Nashville, especially in the wintertime?
Well, believe it or not, the congregation there was no congregation at the beginning. We started the church from the ground.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So we were coming on faith.
Okay.
At the beginning of our journey. But God always gave us somebody. We never came up and there was absolutely nobody there.
Okay.
Every time we came, God always sent somebody there. And
so you passed Nashville and Clarksville and Hopkinsville and all of those places along 24 and came into Paducah.
Yes, ma'am.
And the congregation is growing.
Yes, ma'am. God is blessing us.
Very good.
He is blessing us. I'm excited about it.
Very good. And I've had occasion to visit Christ Temple, and you've also been a guest at my church.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm glad of the fellowship that we share in the area of ministry. But ministry was not always what you had initially been into, which kind of leads up into the ministry that you are doing now.
Yes, ma'am.
Without making you too uncomfortable, would you care to share any of your background?
Sure. And it really doesn't make me uncomfortable because I've basically given my testimony everywhere I go because I believe that it's a part of who I am. I think people need to know that even as pastors, we were not always the kind of people that they see now.
That's right.
So I was convicted of armed robbery in 1983 and sentenced to 12 years in prison. I went to prison in 1984 and was there for a little over 3 years. And I was released from prison in 1987, and actually I got saved in prison.
Okay.
And when I was released in 1987, it's been Jesus all the way for me since then. So I've always had a heart for prisoners and guys getting out of prison, male or female. I've always had a heart for them because I know that it's a struggle being in there, and it's also sometimes an even greater struggle once you get out. So this is basically why I do what I do. It's because of where I've come from.
And you've also written a book.
Yes, ma'am.
About your experience.
Yes, ma'am. Called Under the Shadow.
Under the Shadows.
And fortunately, God has blessed me with that, and we are trying to get it in all the jails and the prisons and everything, and God's helping me out with that as well. And everybody that has read it has said good things about it, so I'm happy about it.
And I'm one who has read it.
Oh, well, great.
And I found it to be a very real testimony of what it is like to be saved.
Yes.
And because you are saved, it does not eliminate your struggles.
That's right.
That it does not give you a free pass. It does not mean that the things that you did before you got saved, that there is still not some sense of accountability
Right.
for it.
Right.
And as you are going down the journey, there are a lot of pitfalls and obstacles that are in your path. And I commend you for how the Spirit of the Lord, you allowed it to use you in those circumstances. For I think if you had made some other decisions,
I wouldn't be here.
we wouldn't be having this conversation
I would not be here. I would not be
today.
here. Yes, ma'am.
And so from your own experience and background of being in the prison system and having to deal with what happens to those who come out, especially with absolutely nothing. Tell us about this ministry that you have taken outside of the walls of the traditional church.
Yes, we have, Christ Temple has developed another organization, nonprofit organization called the Life Community. It's LIFE, which stands for Love is for Everyone.
Okay.
And we try to, we want to have a community of helps where people from all types of backgrounds, all situations in their lives can come to this place and get the help that they need. And right now, what we're doing, we have a Jumpstart program. We made a house that's right next to the church. We purchased that house and we made it a transitional housing for inmates, for people coming out of prisons or jails that have absolutely nowhere to go and no kind of support at all. And we allow them to stay there for about 30 days so they can get on their feet. And once they kind of get on their feet, they can then go out and do some things. Because I know without having support, it is very, very difficult for anybody getting out of jail or prison to survive without having support. And sometimes they are let out and it's like, okay, fend for yourself. But you got all these bills a lot of times that you have to pay once you get out. And I know, especially here in the city, I'm learning some things about the correction system here. And sometimes they owe so much. And once they get out, it's like they have no job, nobody's hiring them, but they got a deadline to pay all this money back.
So it's like the state or the county, charges room and board for the time that they serve?
Yes, and I think certain ways some don't have to pay because of convictions or whatever, but others do. Then they got the thing called crossroads that I'm not really understanding exactly what that is, but they have to pay. And it just seems like they owe so much. They have to pay out so much money with nothing. But then if they don't pay it, then they get locked back up.
Okay, no resources, no direction
right.
to get resources.
Exactly. Because, a lot of people don't want to hire you if you got a felony.
Yes.
If you are an ex-con, or you either have to lie on your application or tell the truth and expect the doors to kind of slam in your face.
Yeah.
So
if you lie and they find out later that you lied, you're right back where you started.
You're right back where you started. So it kind of leaves an inmate at a crossroad of decisions. Are you going to tell the truth and risk not getting a job, or you're going to lie and risk getting a job and hope they never find out?
And then it puts them in a catch-22.
It does.
Because part of the conditions of parole, as I understand it, is they must be employed.
Right.
But then if they can't get employed,
then they have to end up going back to prison.
Yeah.
So it's
going back to the very things and the influences and places and situations that caused them
to be in the first place.
To be in prison in the first place.
And I say this a lot, and I get in trouble by saying it, so I hope I don't get in much trouble. But sometimes the system is designed, and I don't say it's the people in the system, like from the judges or whatever, but the system itself is a spiritual design to not help people, but to actually keep people. It's designed for that. And I don't think it's a personal intention, but the system itself is designed for that, because there's no rehabilitation. They offer certain programs in some places, but sometimes they just hold you until your time is up. And when your time is up, it's like, okay, now you're free to go. But they put you on parole, not expecting you to stay out, but expecting you to come back so that you can continue to be in the system and continue to get money or whatever, because there's so much money that they get per inmate, and then now the inmate has to pay. So it becomes a big money-making type device.
And not to mention the taxpayer
Thank you.
expense.
Exactly.
I was once, when I lived in Indiana, attending a session where one of our former Surgeon Generals was giving a speech, and she said that it costs each state in the nation more to incarcerate a person for a year than it costs for college education
Exactly.
for the same amount
Exactly.
of time.
Exactly.
And we see it that our legislatures, and I'm in agreement with you, Pastor Walton, and if I get in trouble, then I'm just in trouble.
I stay in trouble.
But we're charged to speak the prophetic
That's right,
word.
that's right,
And that is that we as taxpayers need to hold our legislators accountable, where they are willing to take money from education in order to build bigger and better prisons. You're right. The penal system has become a multi-billion-dollar industry.
It really has. But the thing about it, the public don't really know it.
Right.
The public gets this impression that everything is really okay and fair and legal and things of that nature, and they don't really know the system until they have someone in the system that they love or whatever. Then they see the system. But for the most part, if they stand off from the system and look at it from television, the system is doing a great job. But it's in my experience, there are more criminals made from the system
Okay, than before they went in.
Uh-huh. This is just from my experience. I've been dealing with the prison system since I went in 1984, and there are more guys that go in that are not necessarily criminals until they get in there.
Okay.
Then the system teaches them basically how to be criminals.
Okay.
I don't say that it's intentionally done, but a guy goes in, maybe young, 19 or 20. He might lose his mom or his father while he's in there. Some things happen. He made a mistake, of course. Now he has to go to prison. He might get raped. Have to learn how to be tough. Have to learn how to hide his emotions just to survive.
Yes.
Lift weights and gets his mind basically in a whole different level just to survive. Now you've created a monster in there. So he comes out now to a society that does not accept him.
And does not really want him.
Does not really want him. So now he has to survive. This guy has to survive.
Yes.
And he survives the only way he knows how, whether it's taking your purse, selling drugs, ripping off somebody or whatever, he has to survive. And sometimes we don't understand that type of mentality in a person. So this is why when I even go back to prisons and talk to guys or girls, I try to let them know that you have got to make your mind up that you're going to be better, that you're going to do something different. Everybody's not going to give you an opportunity.
That's right.
Everybody's not going to give you a chance, but there are some people that will.
Yes.
This is why we even having our Jumpstart program, we've had some failures. We've had some people throw egg in our face, but we've had some people that it has been a great thing for them because they had absolutely nowhere to go. Nowhere to go.
Yeah.
They would be homeless if
Okay.
it were not for the program.
And they have to have a place to live also.
Right.
So you're helping to keep them from having excuses to go back, into the prison population.
Yes, ma'am.
About the Jumpstart, what, other than the fact that they are homeless, once they get into the home, how many can you accommodate at one time?
Well, right now we have 3 bedrooms, and we've had up to probably 5 in there at one time, and it really helps them to know that they have a roof over their head. We feed them. We take care of all the utilities and everything.
Okay.
And we just recently got some aid from the United Way.
Okay.
Which we're glad of that. But
Very
for the most
good.
part, Christ Temple does all of the expensive and everything. But God has been blessing us.
Yes.
He has blessed us to do that.
To be a blessing.
To be a blessing, and that's what it's about. And we have a couple of guys there now that if it were not for the Jumpstart program, they would not been allowed to go any other place because of the charges or whatever. So we were there to be able to help them, to embrace them, and to show them some love. That's what it's really about. You know, we want to show you that God's not mad at you, even though
Okay.
society might be.
Okay.
God's not mad at you, and He does love you, and He does want to try to help you get a jump start on your life.
Okay. What are the criteria for having residents other than being homeless? What are they required to do when they come to the house?
Okay, our rules say they have to be up by 8 o'clock and out unless they have a job.
Okay.
If they're not working, they have to be up and out of there at 8 o'clock looking for a job. They can't have alcohol, drugs, or anything like that. Friends or visitors, females or any people of the opposite sex or whatever,
Okay.
Unless they visit outside. No pets, you know, just regular
Right.
things that they have to keep themselves away from the police. Any trouble you get in with the police, you're in trouble with us.
Okay.
Because we want you to do better.
Okay.
You know, so we have some limitations, being by dark or whatever, and if you can't stay out overnight unless we know about it, unless you're working. You know, and we have termination rules as far as if you violate certain of the rules, you get write-ups, and if you violate some of the stronger ones like intoxication or drugs, or staying out all night or whatever, or stealing or anything, then we have to terminate you completely.
Okay.
So we try to make it fair, but we also try to make it to where they realize that we're trying to help them, and we don't want to tolerate any type of same old type activity.
Okay. So you're emphasizing not only love and kindness and compassion, but also accountability
Exactly.
and responsibility.
Exactly. We are doing that. Exactly.
Okay. Is there, but there's nobody who supervises them in any kind of way once they leave the house?
Well, we just kind of keep up with them.
Okay.
We don't no nobody super because they're free. You know, as far as we're concerned, we're not like a halfway house or anything like that.
Okay.
They are free people, so
Okay.
we don't.
So what's the difference with yours and a halfway house?
A halfway house, I believe they are still in prison.
Okay.
They have not made parole, as far as I know. Once they make parole, that's where we are.
Okay.
You know, basically, the prison system has let them go.
All right.
See, so they are out there now. So that's when we come in to try to help take them. They can go from one institution to a halfway house because they're still incarcerated.
Okay. And that's part of the prison
Right, part of the
system.
prison system.
Okay.
Ours is not a part of the prison
Okay.
system.
So yours is one of their first steps
After
once they leave out
Right.
of, but are they totally out of the system? And what I mean by that is, are you dealing with those who have completely served their time or for those who are on parole?
Both.
Okay.
Both. Because some of them have completely served their time. Some of them, the parole board can parole them there as their residents.
Okay.
You know, if they choose. So we're dealing with both kinds, and it's helpful because we try our best not to put any limitations on the type of people that we get. Of course, we don't, since we have men that are there now, we wouldn't want any females there.
I understand.
But we are working on a house now for females.
Very
as
good.
well.
How, since you said the courts may parole them
Or
to
the-
Jumpstart, how has the court system responded to Jumpstart? Was it difficult to
Well,
get
actually-
there?
To be honest with you, they haven't really responded at all.
Okay.
They haven't really responded at all. They could parole them there if they so choose. But as far as we know, the courts don't, you know, it's like it's no big deal to them. Don't seem like it. I've given all of them the information, parole officers, the parole board, the court system, all the judges, the police department. We have given them all of our rules and regulations, all of our criteria, everything, just to let them know that we exist. And we have basically not heard anything from them.
No surprise visits to check up on them to make sure that they're
Not at
doing
all.
what they're
No.
supposed to do?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
So basically, I guess I'm the police and the director and the supporter, everything. You know,
Okay.
comes from basically from Christ Temple. So I kind of suspected that because, you know, here we are kind of alone out to ourselves and not really involved in a whole lot of things. So we kind of have to feel like, I kind of feel like that we're gonna just do this on our own, basically, and without support, even though we have given the people that I feel like should have the information, but we have not heard anything from them at all.
Now, traditionally, the area where your church is, I know you love to describe it. If anybody doesn't know, it's across from Happy's Chili Bar.
Across from Happy's Chili Bar.
Hey, that's a good thing to
Right.
get people to
Everybody
remember.
knows where
Everybody knows where
Happy's.
Happy's is. But also in that area, there are problems
Right.
that everyone, well, I won't say everyone, but those who need to know that they exist.
Right.
And you've faced them from the time that you established the church
Yes, ma'am.
there. How does that neighborhood environment work with or against those who are attending Jumpstart? Or is that part of the rules that they can't hang out on the corner,
Well, actually,
they can't hang out at Happy's, or?
That's a very, very good question, because from the time that we first started the church, it was very bad.
Okay.
Driving through that area was just very bad. About a couple of months after we started, someone threw a whiskey bottle through the church window, and the guy at Happy's helped take up a collection to get the window fixed.
Okay.
And so we began a relationship. And since we've been there, God has really cleaned up that area. I mean, it is nowhere close to as bad as it was. Every now and then you might see one or two people standing out there, but for the most part, not anywhere close to like it was before. And so actually, the people in the Jumpstart house don't have any problems.
Okay.
They don't have any problem because it's not as bad as it was. It's not as bad as it was. So we're grateful. We feel like God has helped us to kind of clean it up for the people that are coming out, so that temptation won't be so great for them.
Do you have any connections or resources with potential employers or any kind of job search organizations that would help the ones who come to Jumpstart, help them find employment?
Right. We have several places that we know we'll hire them.
Okay.
And we send them to those places, and those that have come out of there have gotten jobs at those places. So that has been a big help. And to be honest with you, I just found out about these. I have not talked to the actual employers or anything like
Okay.
that. I just knew that through other resources that they would. So I just send the people down there, and they have been fortunate to get jobs at those places.
So when the 30 days is up, if I'm at Jumpstart and I don't have a job and still don't have anywhere to go, and my 30 days is up, what happens to me?
Well, that's a good question, but we have not quite come to that type of situation yet, because they usually, within that length of time, they've had jobs. Now, the only reason that they wouldn't have a job because they hadn't taken a job or hadn't really looked. Now, we have a couple of guys in there now that are that are disabled.
Okay.
Okay, and they're waiting for their disability and veterans, things like that, to come in.
All right.
So we are being a little bit patient with them because of their circumstance. But of a good, healthy, strong person that hadn't gotten a job in 30 days, they got some issues. They got some
Okay.
issues.
They're
They got
not-
some issues.
they're not trying.
They're not trying.
Okay.
They're not trying.
Since it's a church-sponsored ministry, are they required to go to church?
Well, actually, they're not, and it's really, the church started it, but it's another organization
Okay.
that it's under. Remember,
So it's
the
a
Life Community.
nonprofit.
Right, it's another
Okay.
nonprofit organization. So we don't put stipulations on them as far as coming to church. But they do come.
Okay.
But no, it's not a requirement.
Okay.
I probably preach to them enough one-on-one that they probably get enough church. They probably get enough church. So
Do they come to Christ Temple, or
sometimes?
some do?
Sometimes.
Or
some
go
do.
wherever in the city?
Right.
Okay, they got the job, but what about housing
That's
for them once they leave the program? Do they have to be looking for housing
Right.
as well?
everything that within those 30 days should be geared toward them setting themselves up for the future.
Okay.
Job-wise, saving money, getting a place to stay, even if it's just temporary, and just to be able to get on their feet. You know, we don't want to provide for them for life. We just want to give them a jump start.
Okay.
Because
Just-
we're unable to provide for them for life.
Okay.
But-
Just like
but-
with a car battery.
Right. Right.
You put the jumper cables on, but they're not to stay attached to the car. It's just to
Exactly.
give the other
Just to-
car to get it started, and then it can,
Go and get fixed whatever the problem is.
right, just to defy the odds of, you have come to believe from your own personal life and witness that everybody doesn't have to go back into the system.
Exactly. That is one of the things that I really try to stress when I go to jails and prisons to talk to guys. You don't have to keep coming back. You know, most of the guys that I was in prison with, I would say 90% of them has gone back to prison since they've been out. But you don't have to go back. But you have to be determined to stay out. You know, even with support, we can't make the people in the Jumpstart house do better.
That's right.
We can just provide them an opportunity.
Okay.
They have to have within themselves a desire and a determination to stay out of prison. Without that desire and determination, they're going to get themselves caught right back up in things and end up right back in the system.
Do you try to work any reconciliation with families while they're there?
No, we don't really. We try to encourage them to get in touch with their families. Sometimes they're going to do that anyway.
Okay.
You know, it's something that sometimes they have already kind of kept up with their family, and they usually are going to kind of try to get back in touch with them. The ones that we've had over there, even the ones we have now, it's a constant visit from families and things of that nature.
Well, Pastor Walton,
Time's up.
We want to thank you and commend you for not only your ministry for this area at Christ Temple, but also with your Jumpstart program. And because you've made the start, we see it expanding. We see great blessings coming your way with the Jumpstart program. You've got about 10 seconds to say any kind of final remarks before we sign off.
Well, I'm just glad to be here, glad that you had me here, and I hope anyone that wants to help us, let us know. Contact us at the church.
Okay, what's the phone number?
575-3823.
Thank you. And to our friends, we thank you again for tuning in to Reflections. This is sponsored by the Paducah Cooperative Ministries, where we do God's work with human hands. Shalom and be blessed.